one of the things that is also worth mentioning that I should have covered in the article, but I didn't, is I think the article may give the impression that the current state of things is fine, actually, because when you look at the forest plots, confidence intervals overlap most of the time. Research on males usually generalizes pretty well to females. So, why does this matter in the first place? Why should we want more female participants in these studies? And so I did do a poor job of making this clear in the article, but I think one of the primary reasons is that there is a difference between these two things don't seem to be super different, and these two things are exactly the same. Like those are two very different statements, two very different sentiments. And at this point, I suspect there are true sex differences that do exist that we currently don't have the statistical power to detect because essentially we don't have enough research to adequately estimate sex-specific effect estimates. So, just to give an example of that, let's say there's a great example of this is research on training volume. So there are a ton of studies with exclusively male subjects that look at the dose-response relationship between training volume and muscle hypertrophy. And there are I think there are only one or two studies on female cohorts looking at the same thing. And so when you look at those two bodies of literature, they generally find the same thing, that to a point, higher training volumes tend to result in more muscle growth. But there's so little research on female subjects. We're nowhere close to being able to sketch what the dose-response relationship for female subjects might look like. Like we can start to do a decent job of that with male subjects because there's enough research, but we just have no fucking idea what that dose-response curve for female subjects looks like. And so it could be very similar, but not identical. Like, let's just assume that the ideal level of training volume on average for men is, say, 15 sets a week. It could be 18 sets a week, 20 sets a week for women. Like, I don't know if that's the case, but it could be. But the thing is, like, you're not going to have enough statistical power to estimate that with enough precision to know that those, that 3 to 5 set difference is a true difference, rather than just, a single estimate from a single study that needs confirmation. So, there very well probably are some differences that exist that we simply can't know about because there's not enough research on female subjects to estimate with any reasonable amount of precision how much those effect estimates differ. So yeah, like in general, this stuff seems to, like most research in our field seems to generalize between the sexes pretty well. But it probably doesn't generalize perfectly. And there's currently no way to know what areas of research male and female lifters are like very, very similar, virtually identical, and what areas of research maybe there is a trivial to moderate difference. Like in the Cohen's D family, like effect size differences in the 0.1 to 0.5 range. Like we don't have enough statistical power to know if differences of that magnitude, which are non-zero differences, not night and day differences, but differences that are probably large enough to actually make a difference in terms of training recommendations. We simply don't have the data to know if differences of that magnitude exist, and if so, what areas of research those differences exist in. And we need more research on female subjects to be able to estimate that with adequate precision to uncover those differences.
So, boiling this down to kind of summary bullet points here. Basically, you did a meta-analysis or a survey of meta-analyses on this topic. You found that female participants are currently underrepresented in the research.
Very underrepresented.
Very underrepresented, and it seems to be trending the wrong direction, getting worse over time.
Correct.
Current indicators suggest that there's not a massive, aggregated night and day difference to suggest that no male findings will generalize to female participants. However,
well, I wouldn't even say that. I would say we can be pretty confident that they generalize quite well most of the time, but we can't be confident that they generalize perfectly, that there's like a one-to-one relationship.
And we need more female research. This is important because it's going to allow us to determine where some of those small to moderate size sex differences are that actually could be acted upon in terms of programming, nutrition, etc.
Yeah.